You're laughing now, but this is your last laugh.
My name's Jake, and I work at a steel processing plant in Ohio. After 14 grueling years of backbreaking labor, 12-hour shifts, busted knuckles, working holidays for double pay, and never filing a single complaint, I finally got promoted to operations supervisor. Not temporary, not acting supervisor. The real deal with a laminated badge that didn't smell like sweat. A reserved parking spot near the main entrance, and an office with walls that didn't rattle when the furnaces fired up. I should have felt proud. I should have felt seen. Instead, I came home that night with lukewarm pizza in one hand and my official promotion letter still warm from the printer in the other. Sarah was curled up on the couch, legs folded beneath her, scrolling through her phone like the rest of the world didn't exist. Her glass of red wine was sweating on a coaster I'd built her last Christmas. She didn't even look up. "I got it," I said, standing there trying not to grin like a damn schoolboy. "They made it official today. Operations supervisor, full benefits, 5-figure bump in salary." She blinked at me slowly, like maybe she didn't hear me or didn't want to. Then she offered a smile so faint it felt like a leftover. "That's great, honey." That was it. No, "I'm proud of you." No hug. Not even a toast with that wine she kept swirling like it had secrets in it. She just turned her eyes back to her phone, thumbs tapping out something more interesting than the man who'd been breaking his back for years to give her a better life. I stood there for a few more seconds, like maybe if I gave her time to process it, she'd say something else. But the silence stretched tight and ugly until the microwave beeped in the kitchen. I took my box of lukewarm pizza and went upstairs. Then came the dinner. Sarah had organized what she called just a little something with family to celebrate. I should have known better. Her brother Danny was there, grinning like always, sipping that top-shelf bourbon he only brought out when he wanted everyone to notice how expensive it was. Her parents, Carol and Bill, had driven down from Cleveland. Even her cousin Lisa showed up in heels too high for a family table and a dress that looked like it cost more than our water heater. The food was good. I'll give Sarah credit. She made the baked mac and cheese the way I liked it, and her mother brought those deviled eggs I could never say no to. But all through dinner, the talk kept circling back to Marcus, Sarah's ex-boyfriend. "Marcus just bought a new condo downtown," her dad said at one point, like he was proud of him. "He's in management now, too, corporate level." I chewed my chicken and stayed quiet. We made it to dessert before it happened. Danny stood up, raised his glass, and grinned like a man who'd been waiting all night for his moment. "Here's to Jake," he said. Guess the plant needed a token idiot to fill the chair. Laughter, real, full-throated laughter. Sarah's laugh was the loudest. I looked at her. She didn't even glance back. I felt something inside me twist, something that had been coiled too tight for too long. I could feel the back of my neck flush, and I focused on the flickering candle in the center of the table just to stop myself from reacting. Just a joke, I told myself. Just Danny being Danny. Then Lisa giggled and added, "I still think Sarah peaked with Marcus, though." And right then, as if God himself was playing a cruel trick, Carol raised her glass and said, "To Marcus, the one that got away." Glasses clinked, smiles, even a slow clap from Danny. Sarah didn't flinch. She toasted, drank, smiled. I didn't say a word. I pushed my chair back, slow and quiet, stood up and walked out. No slamming, no shouting. Just left. The Ohio air outside bit at my skin, but I didn't notice. I got into my truck, hands trembling, heart heavy. The street lamps buzzed above me, and I sat there staring through the windshield, trying to convince myself I was overreacting, that I was being too sensitive, that maybe they didn't realize how it landed, but deep down I knew better. Later that night, I got the text from Sarah. She was upstairs while I was still in the garage, pretending to organize my old toolbox. "Don't be dramatic, it was a joke." That was her response. Not sorry, not they went too far, not I should have said something. Just that. A joke. They laughed at me like I was some sad clown in a uniform that didn't fit, laughed at my hard-earned promotion like it was a participation trophy, and the woman I married, the one I thought would always have my back, laughed right along with them. That night I didn't sleep in our bed. I lay on the old couch in the den, staring at the dark ceiling, hearing the echo of their voices in my skull over and over. Guess the plant needed a token idiot. Marcus, the one that got away. Don't be dramatic. I wasn't being dramatic. I was being dismissed, disrespected, erased. And in that quiet room with only the ticking clock and my own breathing for company, I decided something I hadn't dared let myself consider before. Maybe the man they laughed at wasn't the punchline. Maybe he was just done. I didn't go to work the next morning, didn't call in either. Just got in the truck before sunrise, hands shaking as I turned the key, and drove north. No real plan, just out. Out of that house, out of that silence, out of that marriage I wasn't sure I was even in anymore. The roads were still wet from last night's rain, mist hanging low over the asphalt like smoke. I must have driven for 4 hours before I realized where I was headed. My uncle's old cabin near Lake Erie, tucked behind a line of crooked trees and overgrown bushes. It had been years since I'd been there, but something about the gravel crunching under the tires and the sight of that weather-stained porch made my chest loosen for the first time in weeks. My Uncle Harvey died 7 years ago, left the cabin to the family. My cousin Tyler was supposed to keep it up, and while we hadn't spoken in years, I knew he had too much guilt in his bones to let the place rot. Sure enough, the gutters were clear, the lock still stiff but working. I stepped inside and let the door shut behind me with a hollow thunk. It was dusty, the kind of dust that clings to forgotten places, but it wasn't dirty. A few spider webs in the corners, some scuff marks on the floor, but otherwise the place looked like it had been waiting for someone, waiting for me. I dropped my duffel bag on the old corduroy couch, kicked off my boots, and stood there in the quiet. No TV, no buzzing phone, no glances across the room that felt like accusations. Just silence. I grabbed a beer from the rusted mini fridge, lukewarm and stale, but I didn't care. Sat on the porch with my legs stretched out and the bottle sweating in my hand. And that's when the question hit me. Not suddenly, not loud, but quiet. Too quiet. When did I stop being a man? When did I stop being the person who earned things instead of getting pitied? When did I go from the man who fixed everything with his hands to the man people laughed at over dinner like a broken tool in the junk drawer? Sarah hadn't called. Not once. Not a single buzz or, "Where are you?" or "Come home." The woman I married, who used to kiss my knuckles after long shifts, didn't seem to notice I was gone. Or worse, she noticed and didn't care. That silence said more than any argument ever could. It told me exactly where I stood. Around noon, Tyler showed up. I heard the truck first, the sputter of that engine he refused to replace, and then the screen door creaked open. He stepped inside without knocking, holding a six-pack and a bag of chips like it was a damn cookout. "You alive?" he asked. "Barely," I replied. We didn't talk about Sarah. We didn't talk about anything, really. Just sat on the porch like we used to when we were kids, watching the trees sway. But in that silence, something healed a little. I pulled back into our driveway 4 days later. The tires crunched against gravel like they were protesting my return. And for a moment, I just sat there behind the wheel, staring at the front door. The porch light was still on, burned all night, every night, like it always did, whether I was there or not. Nothing had changed. Same wreath Sarah hung 2 Christmases ago. Same potted plants she never watered. Same front step with the hairline crack she kept asking me to fix, even though she never said thank you when I did. I stepped inside, bracing for some reaction. Something. Anything. But Sarah was in the kitchen humming. She didn't jump when she heard the door. Didn't ask where I'd been. Just glanced over her shoulder, offered a smile like I'd returned from a quick jog, and turned back to whatever she was stirring. "Hey," she said. "Want dinner? I made cobbler." Like nothing had happened. Like we didn't just let 4 days pass without a word. I looked at her hands, how casually they moved, lifting the wooden spoon and scraping the bowl's sides like a woman at peace. Then I looked at her phone, face up beside the mixing bowl, and my chest pulled tight. M lit up the screen in a soft gray notification banner. I didn't say anything, just walked upstairs, took a long shower, and lay on the bed with my eyes on the ceiling fan. That night, after she fell asleep with a smirk still clinging to her lips, I reached for her phone. It wasn't locked. It never had been. That used to mean trust. Now it just meant arrogance. I opened the message thread. There it was, Marcus's name, bold and familiar. Dozens of messages, every few hours it seemed. I scrolled through old photos, jokes, flirty texts sent during work hours. One of them read, "Remember this spot?" Attached was a picture of our dock at Lake Erie. Except Marcus was in the background. That was supposed to be our place. I'd taken Sarah there the first summer we met. I taught her how to skip stones on that water. Now she was sending that photo to her ex like it was a shared secret. Another picture. Sarah in that dark green dress she wore to the family dinner the night they all laughed at me. She'd taken a mirror selfie. Below it, Marcus had typed, "You wore that for me, didn't you?" She responded with a winking emoji and the words, "Maybe." I felt sick. And then the kicker. "Made your favorite cobbler today. Miss you." She had made cobbler that night, and she offered it to me first. Like I was the one she'd made it for. Like I was still the man who mattered in this house. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I started noticing the little things after that. How she always kept her phone face down around me. Except that night, maybe she got careless. Maybe she thought I wouldn't care anymore. Or worse, maybe she thought I was too stupid to understand what was happening. At breakfast the next morning, she acted like a sitcom wife. Scrambled eggs, toast with strawberry jam, and that same humming. She mentioned going to her sister's baby shower next weekend, said she might stay the night. I nodded, not because I believed her, but because I was listening now, watching. When someone lies to you, you can either react with rage or you can sharpen the blade. The next 3 days, I played my role perfectly. Came home on time. Asked about her day. Fixed the dishwasher she claimed was leaking and let her pat me on the shoulder like I was a dog who'd fetched a bone. I waited until she left the room, then picked up her phone and scrolled through the threads again. There was no recent conversation with her sister, but there were plenty with Marcus. One of them said, "Sunday's still good. Can't wait. Same apartment." I memorized the address. That Sunday she left in a floral sundress, lipstick on and earrings swinging like wind chimes. "Wish me luck," she said at the door. "For baby shower games?" She laughed. "Both." Then she was gone. I didn't go inside. I grabbed my keys and followed. She took the same route she always did when she claimed she was going to see her sister. North toward downtown, past the old industrial district, and through the loop that bled into the nicer parts of town. I followed 2 cars behind, giving her enough space without ever losing sight of her brake lights. My palms sweated on the steering wheel. Not from nerves exactly, but from the kind of cold clarity that sets in when you already know the truth and you're just waiting for proof. She turned down Riverside Drive, a street lined with condos pretending to be upscale, neatly manicured hedges matching mailboxes, that fake suburban polish that never fooled me. She slowed at a brick building with unit numbers printed on a brass plate by the door. Marcus's apartment. I pulled over half a block back, parked under a lopsided oak tree, and stopped the engine. She sat in her car for a second, checked her reflection in the mirror, reapplied lip gloss, then she got out, smoothed the back of her dress, and walked to the front door like she belonged there. She didn't even look over her shoulder. That's what struck me. No paranoia, no hesitation. Just the boldness of someone convinced she'd never be caught. Or worse, convinced I wouldn't care. I waited 3 hours. Eventually, around dusk, the door opened. She stepped out, laughing. Not just a polite laugh, the kind that made her tilt her head and press a hand to her chest. The kind she used to give me. Marcus walked her out. He wasn't even trying to hide it. He stood close, too close, touched her back, said something low that made her laugh again. When I got home, she was already there, flipping through mail like she hadn't just stepped out of someone else's arms. "How was the baby shower?" I asked. She didn't flinch. "Same as always, chaotic." She smirked and tossed a utility bill on the counter. "Lisa's new boyfriend's a nightmare." She lied without blinking. The next morning, I changed the locks, told her the deadbolt had been sticking and replaced it while she was at work. She didn't ask questions. That was her first mistake. She'd gotten so used to my silence, she didn't recognize when it turned into strategy. I created a new folder on my laptop labeled tax documents and started documenting everything. Dates, times, messages, bank transfers. If I was going to be the clown in their circus, I might as well gather evidence before I burned the whole tent down. I logged into our joint account and downloaded transaction histories. She was using the credit card for Uber rides, boutique purchases, hotel rooms, room service. The receipts didn't lie even when she did. Almost $8,000 had disappeared over 6 weeks, spread across wine purchases, boutique stores, digital payments, and one large transfer labeled only as personal reimbursement. I printed everything out, highlighting the biggest charges in yellow marker. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. Every girls' night corresponded with a hotel charge. Every sister visit lined up with restaurant bills for 2 people. Expensive places I'd never taken her to because I'd been too busy working overtime to afford them. Meanwhile, she'd been living it up on my dime with her ex-boyfriend, probably laughing about how oblivious I was. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd been working 14-hour days to build a future for us, while she'd been using that money to build a future without me. Every double shift, every missed dinner, every sacrifice I'd made to give her a better life. She'd turned it all into ammunition against me. When I asked her about it calmly, she waved her hand like she was swatting a fly. Oh, yeah, just paying down some old debt. You know, that credit card from college? I checked her credit report that night. Spotless. No debt. The only recent activity was a soft pull for an apartment lease in both her name and Marcus Thompson's. They'd applied for a lease together last month. I sat there in my office, the lights off, staring at the glow of the screen until my hands went numb. I opened her text messages after she fell asleep. There it was, her last message to Marcus. We're good to move in next month. He hasn't even noticed. Not if, not maybe. When? She was gone in every way but physical. They weren't just having an affair. They were building a life. And they thought I hadn't noticed. It started with a knock on my office door at work. 3 slow taps. I looked up and there stood Angelo, my supervisor, shoulders stiff, mouth tight. He wasn't the kind of man who made small talk when something was wrong. Jake, got a minute? I followed him to a side room with just a table, 2 chairs, and a sealed manila folder waiting like a trap. Someone filed a complaint, Angelo said, looking me straight in the eye. He slid printed pages across the table. Says you've been erratic, disrespectful, aggressive. Mentions inappropriate jokes, questionable decisions. Says you've been unfit lately. My stomach dropped. Who filed this? He shook his head. Anonymous. But HR had to bring it to me. I scanned the documents. The incidents were vague, unprofessional tone, overuse of authority, unsubstantiated disciplinary actions. And then I saw something that made the red fluid drain from my face. One line referenced a comment I had made 2 weeks ago at home, joking with Sarah about a coworker who kept falsifying his time card. I'd said, half laughing, at this point I should just write the guy up for being born. That exact phrase was in the complaint. Only one person could have known that. I looked up at Angelo. You know me. Do I seem unstable to you? No, he said flatly. That's why I pulled you in before HR did. Something about this feels off. I left the meeting tight-lipped, holding that folder like it was radioactive. If Sarah filed it, then this wasn't just about disrespect anymore. This was strategy. A calculated move to set a legal foundation, make me look like the problem, make her exit clean. I opened our home computer that night while Sarah was out picking up wine. She'd left her email open, didn't even bother logging out. I searched for keywords, found drafts, notes she'd typed to herself, make it seem gradual, document Jake's attitude. Another draft read, if I'm going to file, it needs to seem like I've tried talking to him. There was even a timeline she'd mapped out, meetings, purchases, dates. She was building a case, legal, financial, complete. She was laying the groundwork to walk away clean while burying me under HR allegations and marital complaints. If she could paint me as unstable, she could leave with the money, maybe even the house. She counted on my silence, on my tendency to avoid confrontation. But she underestimated one thing. I pay attention. And when I decide to respond, I don't raise my voice. I raise the stakes. Rebecca Chen's name had come up twice in the last year. Once from a guy at work who said she handled his divorce and left his ex with nothing but regret. Once in a local article titled, 10 attorneys you'd want on your side, not against you. Her office sat above a coffee shop on Main Street. Clean lines, gray walls, a single orchid on the windowsill. Rebecca looked up when I knocked like she already knew I'd come. Jake, she said, standing. Her handshake was firm. You've got the eyes of a man who's done waiting. I didn't argue. I opened the folder I'd brought. Printouts, screenshots of Sarah's texts, photos of receipts, the timeline. I slid everything across the desk, one piece at a time. I need to end this, I said, but I want it clean and I want it to cost them. She examined everything like it was evidence in a homicide trial. 10 minutes passed without a word. Then she looked up. Infidelity, financial misconduct, possible cohabitation during marriage, and digital documentation tying it together. That gives us leverage, significant leverage. I also want a restraining order, I added. Not for her, for him. He's been interfering in my marriage, meal treating me indirectly. She scribbled in her notes. Then we'll cite emotional distress and third-party interference. But we need to move quickly. Once she realizes what you've seen, she'll lawyer up. By the end of the hour, we had everything in motion. Divorce papers filed under fault-based grounds, financial forensics to trace the withdrawals, a motion to freeze our joint accounts, a formal rebuttal to the HR complaint with evidence proving Sarah's involvement, and the restraining order request, signed and sealed. That night, I got home before her. I sat at the kitchen island sipping coffee when she walked in, smiling, cheeks flushed. I didn't look up right away, just listened to her toss her keys in the bowl, kick off her shoes. "You're home early," she called out. "Felt like cooking," I said. She wandered in, eyebrows raised. "You cooking? What's the occasion?" I smiled and placed a manila envelope on the counter. She looked at it, then back at me. "What's that?" "Everything," I said. "Every lie, every charge, every message. It's backed up already, so you don't need to worry about deleting anything." Her face paled. "I met with Rebecca Chen today," I continued. "Divorce has been filed, accounts frozen, HR complaint rebutted. Your boyfriend is flagged for interference. By the end of the week, the restraining order will be in his mailbox." She blinked like the words hit her a few beats too late. "You're not serious." "Oh, I'm very serious." She reached for the envelope. I slid it back. "That's for the judge, but I wanted you to see it first." She stood abruptly, knocking over her chair. "This is insane! You're making a mistake!" "No," I said, turning off the stove. "I made a mistake staying quiet for this long." She stared at me, breathing shallow, hands twitching like she didn't know where to place them. "You're blowing up our life over what? Jealousy?" "No," I said. "Over betrayal, over manipulation, over the fact that you used my truck, my money, and my silence to build a future with someone else." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I didn't think you'd ever fight back." "I know," I said, stepping past her. "That's what makes this so satisfying." I left her in the kitchen, breath shallow, eyes glassy, staring at the life unraveling in her hands. The next morning, Rebecca sent the documents to Sarah's office, her email, and her parents. I changed the garage code, had her access removed from all joint accounts. My paycheck was rerouted, every inch of my life secured, backed up, restructured. The game had shifted, and I no longer played the fool. Sarah's lease with Marcus was voided within the week. Turns out, when you submit a legal complaint detailing financial fraud and misrepresentation during a lease application, landlords listen. The leasing office called me directly. "We've never seen a situation so cleanly documented." They canceled the lease. The deposit, almost $4,000 from our drained joint account, was forfeit. Her parents tried calling twice, first Carol, then Bill. I didn't answer. Not because I was angry, but because I had nothing left to explain. They were at the dinner. They heard the toast. They watched me sit there in silence while they toasted Marcus. They saw their son-in-law publicly humiliated and they said nothing, laughed even. They chose their silence. Now they could live in it. 2 days later, HR formally dropped the complaint against me. Angelo called me into his office again, but this time he looked different. Not stiff, not nervous, just quiet. "Why didn't you tell me it came from your wife?" he asked. I leaned back in the chair. "Would it have mattered?" He paused. "Not to me, but it would have changed how they handled it. We've cleared your record. You're solid, Jake." 3 weeks later, I got another call. "There's a promotion coming up. Regional Ops Lead. You should apply." "Thought I'd already been made the joke of the last one," I said dryly. He didn't laugh. "Then it's time they stop laughing." I applied that morning. Got the call a month later. Promoted again. No family dinner this time, no toast. Just a quiet morning, a new badge, and a corner office with windows overlooking the plant floor. And not because I missed it, but because that's where I came from. Every bruise, every callus, every stupid joke, they all built the man sitting in that chair. Sarah moved back into her childhood bedroom with posters still tacked to the wall. Marcus didn't stick around. That's what her cousin Lisa said. He bailed after the lease fell through, claimed he wasn't ready for the drama. They called it drama. I called it documentation. Sarah texted once, just one line. "I didn't think you'd ever fight back." I stared at it for a long while, thought about replying, thought about typing out all the things I wanted to say, but I didn't send anything. I just blocked her number because the joke ended the moment I stopped laughing. 2 months later, I pulled up to the plant parking lot in a car I never thought I'd own. Black Ford Explorer, paid in full, leather seats, backup camera. Something reliable, something mine. As I stepped out, someone from the plant floor waved. "Hey, Mr. Carter." "Call me Jake," I said. He jogged over. "Heard you're the reason Danny Miller won't show his face at company events anymore." I smiled. "Don't believe everything you hear, but yeah, maybe believe that one." I climbed the stairs to my new office. The nameplate on the door gleamed in the light. Jake Patterson, Regional Operations Lead. I opened the door, walked in, and took a deep breath. This was mine. All of it. Not because it was handed to me, but because I earned it through silence, through grit, through knowing when to let people talk and when to let them watch you rise. That afternoon, Rebecca called. "Divorce is finalized. Settlement's locked. She walked away with exactly what you wanted her to have. Nothing. Court ruled in your favor on every point. Judge even made a comment about your comprehensive preparation." I chuckled. This one was personal. "Well," Rebecca said, "you took your pain and turned it into precision. I don't see that often." That evening, I stopped at the liquor store, picked out a bottle I'd only ever seen other people afford. Not a celebration of the divorce, but of surviving it with my dignity intact. When I got home, I opened the bottle and poured 2 fingers into a glass. I sat on the back porch, the one I'd rebuilt after the summer storm 2 years ago, the one Sarah said was a waste of a weekend. It didn't feel wasted now. The sky was that soft orange pink you only see in Ohio before a storm or a turning point. I leaned back, glass in hand, and breathed in the quiet. My quiet. No text buzz, no games, no lies. Just me. A man they laughed at, a man they underestimated, a man who doesn't beg anymore. I didn't toast the moment. Didn't need to, because the real toast was in the silence. The joke was over, and I was nobody's punchline anymore.